plug if sige din Francis, lead nyo na
Um,
rin.
but who will, or is there someone
Uh,
assigned or
wala
um
yata.
so I don't know kasi baka in your ano you don't make it a part anymore so we can
Parang
proceed
parang wala.
directly. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, sige.
Okay.
So
Then
we
Francis,
can
over to you. I think we're live.
okay. All right, so magandang umaga. Good morning to all who are in the Philippines, and maybe good afternoon and good evening to those joining us from other parts of the globe. No? So this is the 10th episode of Miriam College Diplomatic R. This is a live streamed free-flowing conversations on political, economic, and humanitarian issues brought to you by the Department of Global Affairs and Diplomacy. In Miriam College, now we are offering a 4-year Bachelor of Arts in Global Affairs and Diplomacy. I am Dr. Francis Evangelista, the Dean of the School of Arts, Sciences, and Education, and I will be your host today. We are live on the Miriam College YouTube channel, and you are invited to like and follow the MC channel. So for today's episode, we aim to tackle the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in light of the moral, legal, and humanitarian perspectives. And to shed light and address various issues on this conflict, we are joined by two Filipino humanitarian workers who have been deployed in the Gaza Strip and an international law expert. So let me first introduce our guest. First is Mr. Darwin de la Cruz Diaz, who is a licensed nurse and midwife. He's a native of Pangasinan, the Philippines. He earned his degree in nursing from Benguet State University, after which he pursued further education in other institutions, namely Philippine Colleges of Health Sciences, St. Paul University, Philippines, University of La Salette, and Lyceum Northwestern University. In 2014, Darwin joined Doctors Without Borders, or MSF. Now it stands for Medicines Frontier, where he first worked as a midwife supervisor in South Sudan. Since his first mission, he has returned to South Sudan 3 times, and through MSF, he has also worked in Sudan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Darwin's most recent assignment was in Gaza, where he was working as a medical coordinator since 2021. Our second guest is Mr. Regidor Javier Esguerra, who is also a registered nurse, a native of General Santos City, the Philippines. Regidor worked as a nurse in St. Elizabeth Hospital and Southern Philippines Medical Center before joining the International Committee of the Red Cross Philippines as a medical field officer in 2004. He joined Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, in 2008, working until 2014 as a nurse in Sudan, Zambia, South Sudan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, the Philippines, and Bulgaria. Since 2015, Regidor has been working as a project coordinator and project medical referent for Doctors Without Borders projects in places such as Pakistan, Bosnia, Poland, the Philippines, and the occupied Palestinian territories. It was in 2018 when Regidor first worked in Gaza, where he was part of a team that provided reconstructive surgery for war-wounded population during the GMR, or the Great March of Return. He has been so far assigned to Gaza 5 times. And our third guest is Attorney Bertrand Theodore Santos, who is currently a law reform specialist at the Institute of Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea of the UP Law Center. He lectured at the UP and NEU College of Law, as well as conducted specialized lectures for the Philippine Public Safety College, Foreign Service Institute, and the UPIAJ MSMPLE program, among many other institutions. Prior to joining the UP Law Center, Attorney Santos was a Foreign Service officer for 10 years before returning to the academe in 2016. He served as director at the Treaties and the Legal, Maritime and Ocean Affairs and Information Technology, Communications and Records Offices. In the Foreign Office, he handled various tasks such as legal, political assistance to nationals, administrative and consular operations. He also served as field team leader in the 2010 Gaza evacuations, as well as the 2011 Libyan evacuation. He was also part of several bilateral and multilateral treaty negotiations and represented the Philippines in various international forums. He finished his bachelor's degree in public administration and Juris Doctor at UP and his MA International Relations, Security and Strategy at Jindal Global University. And Attorney Santos is currently finishing his Master's of Laws at UP. So in behalf of Miriam College, I would like to thank our three guests for taking time to join us in this episode of the Diplomatic Hour. Before I pose my initial questions, I just would like to inform everyone that the opinions and views expressed in this forum are those of our guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of Miriam College. And I would like to also inform everyone that in the last 15 minutes of the forum, we will give way to your questions. So I would like to encourage everyone to raise questions later. Okay, so let's start the ball rolling. My first question is for Darwin and Regidor. No? Can you please tell us a bit about your experience in delivering aid in the Gaza Strip? What is the situation while you were there, and what are the main challenges in providing aid? Yeah, so we can start with Darwin.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I'm the medical coordinator of MSF in Gaza. It's so cold, the biggest outdoor prison in the world, and now the graveyard of children. So as a medical coordinator, I'm responsible on the medical strategy of the mission and also liaising to the Ministry of Health, INGOs, and other health partners. Even before the war, the health needs in Gaza are immense. MOH is only relying to UN agencies like the UNRWA, UNICEF, WHO, and to INGOs. So at the start of the war, on the 7th of October, the Minister of Health already sent messages to all INGOs, to their partners, asking for help because they think that the war will be longer. And so on the third day, MSF donated our emergency preparedness kits, composed of trauma kits and medicines, and they only use this for a few days, I think 4. A week after, they sent again messages to all partners, and we donated our 9 months of stock to the Ministry of Health, and they only use that for a week. Well, there's a lot of influx of patients in the different hospitals across Gaza Strip. We are having the limb reconstructive surgery project in Alauda Hospital in the north of Gaza. We are also supporting Indonesian Hospital in the north in terms of ER emergency room capacity building, and Shifa Hospital and Nasser. We have Shifa Hospital is in Gaza City, and Nasser Hospital is in Khan Yunis, and we're maintaining burn units in those hospitals. So even before that, even before the war, the situation there is it's a disaster, I would say. And added to that, during this war, we've seen a lot of attacks, bombardment to the different areas across Gaza Strip, hospitals, ambulances, civilians. During this war, as we speak, we already lost 2 doctors and laboratory technicians. And on the 20th of November, they destroyed our several of our MSF cars. So yeah, that's the situation in the medical side.
Yes. Thank you, Darwin. Let's go to Regidor.
Hello, hello, good morning. So for operational side, the challenges that we receive, particularly when you say about operating in armed conflict situations. So our organization is really concerned about the security of the staff. So for us, before deployment of our team, particularly in this armed conflict context in Gaza, we need to secure that we need to have a coordinations for both warring parties, which means in Israeli and Hamas. So not only that, after we secure our coordinations with them, we need to ensure that we have the proper means of transport. It means that we have really a movement, a protocol that we need to follow it strictly. So once the team arrives in the hospital, it's another issues that we need to take care. It means that we need to ensure that they have a safe place to go in case that there will be bombardments around the hospital premises. Then the big challenge for us is like once we engage our team in the activities, it's mostly how we need to resupply them in terms of food and also supplies. As what Darwin is mentioning, our supplies were given. This is our supplies for months, and it was just consumed for a couple of days. So it's quite difficult to move supplies because of the restriction of movements that is imposed particularly by the Israeli authorities. So I guess that is the one of the main challenges for the operations because for us, security is our primary concern. We cannot conduct any activities unless there are security guarantees that will be given by the warring parties. Thank you.
Yeah, but before I go to Attorney Bert, just to follow up on what you have shared. So there was a directive, no, from the Israeli authorities to block, supplies, aids coming from outside.
Yeah, I guess as what Darwin is mentioning before, pre-conflict, there's already a blockade that was implemented in Gaza. So it means that the basic medical supplies that is supposed to come regularly, or what we are expecting that it will come in a bulk, there's already restrictions imposed by the authorities pre-conflict. So it was exacerbated during the time of conflict. Israeli decided to cut all the basic access to water, energy, which means electricity, fuel, and food. So this is not new in Gaza, but the fact that it's systematically done by the Israeli authorities, which is a big questions that we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, thank you, Regidor. Yeah, in light of what Darwin and Regidor shared, Attorney Bert, yeah, no, hindi lang, no, just like on October 7, no, nagsimula, no, yung conflict, but yung it's really a deeply rooted conflict, no, between two people. Maybe, no, from international law perspective, can you give us just a quick history, no, of why, no, this conflict arose between Israeli and Hamas? Yeah.
So medyo mahaba po ito. Pwede bang Tagalog or English tayo?
Pwede naman po, attorney.
Pwede, okay.
Yeah, pwede
Medyo
Tagalog,
mahaba po ang history nila. But giving credit to the two heroes from MSF, hindi po biro yung kanilang ginagawa. And we have two duties. One duty is our duty to humanity, which they are fulfilling. And we have also a second duty, which would be for our students in Miriam College who would become diplomats later on. We also have duties to our nationals. And we do have nationals in Gaza and in West Bank. And of course, we have 30 to 40,000 Filipinos in Israel. They are working there. So, napaka-komplikado po nung issue na to. It goes well beyond na today. 1947 meron na to. And even during the turn of the century, 1907, 1912, meron na po itong issue na to. Because of Jewish immigration to Palestine. And then later on, the creation of attendant to the creation of the State of Israel. So, komplikado tong isyung to, pero ang hindi po komplikado is the humanitarian aspect. So when people's homes are bombed or bombs fall near people's home on both sides, hindi lang po pareho isang side, marami pong naaapektuhan. Hindi po komplikado to pag nasusugatan yung mga tao, pag namamatay ang mga tao. Although ang history nga nila komplikado. So kung may time po tayo, pwede kong ibigay ng siguro mga 2 minutes yung kanilang
sir.
history. So during 1947, around 1947, the United Nations General Assembly approved that partition plan for Palestine. So meron dapat independent Jewish state, meron din dapat independent Arab state. So this would be the two-state solution. This consisted of the territories. Ang division would be for the Arabs, 42% of the territory, and for the Jews, 56% of the territory. With the remaining 2% comprising of Jerusalem and Bethlehem, would be considered internationalized. So walang may-ari nito. It will be the holy site for not just for the Jewish and the Arab, but also for Christians. So this would also include an economic union. So of course, the Arabs rejected this. Feeling nila lugi sila dahil 2/3 ng population kanila, and then they will get just 42% of the land. And it also violated their right to self-determination. So what happened is they had a civil war in 1947 to 1948 doon sa mandatory Palestine. And after the British left, Israel declared its independence, and then Egypt, Transjordan, Iraq, and Syria invaded the territory, resulting to the 1948 Arab-Israeli Wars. Of course, kilala natin kung sino ang nanalo noon dahil sila ang nakapagtayo ng estado at napalayas o umalis yung mga nakatirang iba doon. So, there were a series of other wars, including the 1967 Arab-Israeli War, or also known as the Six-Day War, wherein Israel also gained Gaza and the West Bank from Egypt and Jordan, and Golan Heights from Syria. Although they returned Gaza, or they withdrew from Gaza in 2005, it resulted in territorial expansions. So, titigil po muna ako doon. So, ang nangyari nga, na-displace yung millions of Palestinians, and aside from being in the West Bank and in Gaza, they have very significant numbers in other countries like Jordan and the Lebanon. So, yun po muna ang background. So, I think the question really was sir, international law. So I could go there for a bit. So sa ngayon I would say that I am very careful in declaring immediately that there is a violation of international law, because as a lawyer, kailangan i-prove mo yung facts on the ground. And this is now complicated because there is a lot of misinformation coming from both sides. So one side would say na tinira yung ospital, the other side would say na yung ibang grupo ang nagpaputok from the inside sa hospital, and merong tunnels inside the hospital which are being used for command posts. So there is a war also of propaganda on either side, and this is stoking the emotions of either side and complicating the desire to have peace. So doon po muna ang aking piece. Thank you.
Yes, Attorney Bert, thank you for shedding light on the deeply rooted historical source of this conflict. And indeed, we really need to get the facts straight, before we can really make any judgment. And it's good, that Darwin, and Regidor, were there, and their colleagues, can really provide, these needed facts we need, to really say, whether there are violations of international laws, civilian deaths, and attacks. So, Darwin and Regidor, based on your experience and the accounts, of your colleagues, in MSF, were hospitals bombed, and where can we attribute, these attacks? And the other one is yung nabanggit ni Attorney Bert, na are the military infrastructures, of Hamas buried, under hospitals, or other civilian infrastructures, so that yung the intention was really to use these civilians as human shields, for this Islamist group. Yes, so Darwin, maybe, and then Regidor.
Yeah, so MSF as a humanitarian organization, medical humanitarian organization, so we are working with the gaps with the different Ministry of Health of the different governments, to the question whether we know if there's a tunnel or under mga hospitals. Hindi ko po nakita personally. Every time I'll have a meeting with the Ministry of Health, we're just discussing about health. Just for everyone to understand na ang Hamas is the de facto government of Gaza. And the military wing is the Al-Qassam brigade. So kami, as MSF, so we are only dealing with the civilian authorities of the Hamas. So we don't know what's happening, what's under the hospital, kung meron man. And that we're just catering and looking after the medical needs of the population. With regards naman po sa bombing ng hospital, so we have different hospitals na sinusuportahan ng MSF sa Gaza Strip. We lost 2 MSF doctors when the Israeli bombarded the hospital in the north, Alauda Hospital. Several others were wounded. Meron ding inatake yung vehicle ng MSF, fully printed and fully identified na MSF car. Most of our staff working there now, they lost immediate family members, friends, relatives.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Regidor.
Yeah, just to add what Darwin is saying, it's like, can you imagine a 365 square kilometer area and inhabited by 2.3 million people? So we just need to put that picture in mind that when you start indiscriminately bombing structures, particularly the one that is providing direct services or direct medical services to the people, then you cannot imagine the damage that it will have on the structure itself. So as what Darwin is saying, it's like we are coordinating with the civilian side of the Hamas. So we're trying to provide the medical services to the people, but what Israel is doing is, again, this is more like, I will repeat again, the systematic deprivation of populations for access to basic services, which means, I put it in close, access to services, access to medical services. So if you start bombarding hospitals, then people will not have access to basic medical care. And the level of injuries that we are seeing on the ground, it's a catastrophe kind of injury. It's a multiple trauma injuries caused by bombs, caused by a crashing of buildings, people, particularly children. So as you can see, there are already, based on the figures that I have right now, there are more than 6,150 children already killed, and there are still 4,150 something that is still missing under the rubble. So this is the situations right now.
Thank you, Regidor. Yeah, so moving to Attorney Bert, yeah, no, the October 7, no, unprecedented assault, no, of Hamas, no, in Israeli towns and cities, no, which they say, no, killed about 1,400 Israelis, including children and aged people, no, and abducting, no, 240 Israelis, no, based on reports. So clearly, no, these are war crimes. No? But I would like to focus on Israel's response. No? So how can we assess, no, its response from the perspective of international laws? No? Although civilian casualties, no, are notoriously hard to calculate, no, but yeah, no, mabinigay na figures, no, si Regidor, no, and we can also see reports from other health officials. So what do international laws say regarding the extent, no, of response, no, that Israel, no, should take, no, or carry out, no, well, no, for the reason of them wanting to protect themselves, no, from this terrorist group, no, kumbaga, that's what they use, no, it's more of a self-defense, no, argument, no, and that's on the one hand, no, and the other is on the directive, no, for Palestinians to evacuate, no, their homelands, no, which is actually tantamount, no, to force displacement, no, of the Palestinian population, which I think, no, international laws also have something to say regarding forced displacement. Yes, Attorney Bird.
So, going back po sa international law, from the Palestinian side or the Hamas and Gaza Palestinian side, ang talagang contention nila as verbalized by the UN Secretary General, this is a result of the background of more than 50 years of Israeli occupation and the attendant pain suffered by the Palestinian people. And Hamas is trying, or ang contention ng Hamas is they are trying to gain independence. So yung independence is subject to different interpretations, from pushing back the Israelis back to the sea, or just merely living as free people. But be that as it may background talaga sila ng kanilang mga hinaing. And then on the another part, they now have 13,000 casualties, already 10 times the Israeli side, and still counting, because as of today, the Israeli offensive has resumed after the failure of the ceasefire to be made more permanent. And ang problem ngayon is the declared safe zones in the north are in the south are now being attacked by Israel in the phase 2 of their campaign. So a more serious allegation against the Israelis would be, is this collective punishment? Are you punishing the entire population for the actions of some? So that's on the other side, the Israeli side, they are contending that it is Hamas which instigated this war on October 7, 2023. And even before October 7, Israel has undergone regular rocket fire, killing 39 Israelis and 2 foreigners. And Israel is invoking its right to self-defense to justify its armed response against Hamas. And it's also invoking its right to rescue the people hostage. So that's what I'm saying, that this is a very complicated endeavor. But saving human lives is the uncomplicated task here, because furthermore, Israel is also contending that Hamas is using the civilians as human shields. So under international humanitarian law, we should distinguish between combatants and non-combatants. So non-combatants are prisoners of war, the sick, the wounded, and civilians. And by civilians, we mean not just the population or the people, but the object. Imagine if you destroy their shops, you destroy their hospitals, even if they survive this war, life is going to be really hard for the civilians. So international humanitarian law provides rules on the treatment of non-combatants. And right now, we should imagine a world without international law, for all our frustration with the seeming lack of capability of international law. So imagine the Israelis unhampered by international law. So the Israelis, with all their military power, could flatten the Gaza Strip. On the other hand, if Hamas is also unrestrained by international law, the October 7 incursions, the intruders from Hamas would have just run amok all over southern Israel. And they could have targeted the kindergartens, they could have targeted the daycare centers, and then kidnap them back to Gaza. So kahit hindi natin nakikita ang international law as effective, we are seeing them as we are seeing the results bound of international law binding the two parties. Another example is with the death toll now rising in Gaza, the previous sympathy for Israel after the October 7 attacks has now shifted to Palestine or to Gaza. So even Israel's biggest supporter, the United States, which vetoes the UN security and resolutions, has now warned Israel. Just last night, it was the turn of Vice President Harris of the United States to remind Israel to be more circumspect and more careful in targeting civilians. And the previous night, it was the Secretary of Defense. So it would seem the Israelis are more amenable to listening to the United States. So I think I've spoken a bit too much para sa ano natin dalawa. Thank you.
Yes, salamat, Attorney Bert. Yeah, no, so that is the development right now. And yeah, no, the attack of Israel, no, I heard, no, it involves the use of 2,000 pound bombs, no, that yung which is not really something, no, proportionate, no, to their objective, no, and given also, no, the territorial, no, property, no, na talagang so may I ask Darwin and Raydo, how densely populated, no, is Gaza, no, so that an attack, no, on any of its area, no, will really result, no, to civilian deaths. Ganun ba kaano siya, no, kasi it's really a strip, no, just a strip of land, no, but as you said, no, how many Palestinians, no, populate this strip of land, no.
Yeah, so we're talking about 2.3 million population stretched into 365 square kilometers. In other refugee camps, in other places I've been to, ang mga refugee camps horizontal yung paglaki. While in Gaza, it's because of the lack of space. So ang refugee camps, pataas sila. So imagine a building, 5-story, 6-story building, ilang families ang nandoon. So even an indirect hit ng bombardment, maraming casualty ang namamatay. One case, for example, yung staff namin, yung family niya, it was in the old city of Gaza City, na it's a collateral damage supposed to be, but because tabi-tabi ang mga bahay and mga buildings, so that's the reason why they died. So aside from this heavy bombardment, actually, so they are using as well other means ng weapon like the white phosphorus, for example. May mga reported yung mga plastic surgeons namin, they are all over the hospitals in Gaza Strip, and they are reporting na indeed they are seeing patients na yung burns is caused by white phosphorus. So yeah, hindi lang bombardment, hindi lang different weapons ang ginagamit, but now with the limited supplies that went in during the truce, then sooner or later yung mga population, the Gazans, will starve to death or even dehydrated. And yeah, so now December up to March, it will be the winter sa Gaza with no housing, no fuel to power the electricity, the heating system there. So sila din mamamatay because of the cold.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
just to add on
General.
what Darwin is saying, sa ang Gaza kasi it was divided in 5 governorates, which means North, Gaza City, Middle Area, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. So if you are really following the news, you can see that most of the bombardments are happening in North Gaza and Gaza City, which is what you normally see in the news, that the bombing of Jabalia camp, which is in the north of Gaza, and Al-Shati camp, and some neighborhoods in Gaza City. These are populated areas. And as you mentioned before, the type of munitions that the Israel is using, when you struck one building, the building will collapse. So this is really catastrophic in terms of the injuries that the people will incur. So, naalala ko yung sinabi sa akin noong una nung nasa Great March of Return ako. I was asking questions to our operating room team. And I was saying, this is, during the time of Great March Return, sabi ko, napakalala ng mga injuries na sustain ng mga tao na binabaril sa perimeter fence. Then, sabi na sa akin ng isang surgeon, no, Reggie, this is nothing. The 2014 incursion is much worse because you will have multiple trauma. So going back in the context right now, this is what people are experiencing in Gaza. So when the drop bombs, you never know what kind of injuries you will have. Definitely, this will be in a catastrophic proportion of injuries, particularly if binabomb mo ang populated neighborhood or areas. So yun nga yung isa sa mahirap tanggapin ngayon, na people are given evacuation orders to move south, but there's no safe zone in Gaza Strip. So lahat tina-target.
Yeah, no, but is it true, no, that the Palestinians have been given warning, no, na yung the attack will be carried out, so they need, no, to evacuate. So how was the is the evacuation done? No? Is it really realistic, no, that they can just go to the next like in Egypt, no, or in another territory, no, to escape, no, these bombing? How possible is that, no, or how impossible?
So I guess for what we experienced on our first evacuations, because we are part also of the people that needs to evacuate Gaza City. So first is like you were given notice for 12 hours. For us, as an international organizations, we were able to find means because we have resources on the ground. We have means of transport, we need to coordinate, but it took us also at least 6 hours to organize our team to move to the south. And for ordinary Gazan people, giving a 12-hour notice to evacuate, how many millions of people, like let's say 1 million people that is living in the north of Gaza and also in Gaza City. So to move to the south in just 12 hours is unrealistic goal. And what we also get the informations from our staff during the start of the bombardment in the north of Gaza, people will receive flyers saying that, okay, the residents of the north of Gaza, particularly the area of Beth Hanun, they need to move to Gaza City. Or then after 24 hours, the people moves to Gaza City and they bomb Gaza City, which means people that already displaced from their homes from the north, from Beth Hanun, go to Gaza City, then they find themselves again bombed by the Israelis. So it's the same kind of concept that we are receiving notice of evacuations. But when you evacuate, there's a lot of challenges that the people are experiencing. There will be flagged down on the roads. There are checkpoints. During the time, we don't have checkpoints because there's no yet military or Israeli defense force that is blocking the entry and exit in Gaza City. But now, can you imagine the situations that they are lining up for hours and hours? This is the point that our convoy were stopped and waited for a couple of hours. Then when they started to go back to Gaza City, they were targeted by the Israeli. And one of our staff were killed and one of the relatives were also killed. So this is the reality that we are seeing right now.
There's
Yeah,
no
thank you.
safe place in Gaza, whether it's from the north, from the middle area, or to the south. There is no safe place. As Reggie said at the beginning of previous escalations and at the beginning of this war, Israeli are doing this roof knocking technique, where they will drop flyers or they will call someone from the building that you need to evacuate. I don't know, it depends, 30 minutes, 1 hour, maximum 4 hours before they can go. And but the problem is that they dedicated their life. For example, one family is in Jabalia camp in North Gaza. Wala silang kamag-anak in the south. Because there, in the buildings, like for example, their extended family, they're all there. So wala silang mapupuntahan. Many of our staff actually, they opted to stay in their houses. Ang lagi nilang sinasabi, we better die as a family than to feel the challenges at saka miserable life if we go south. So that's always what they say. Whenever we communicate to them, we're still alive, we're still breathing, we're still okay, but who knows, our time will come. So yan ang lagi nilang sinasabi. And during this war, even evacuating from the north to the middle area to the south, there's no assurance na hindi sila bobombahin. Many times, Israeli government, Israeli military bomb ambulances. They are bombing even MSF cars. Say, for example, they shoot one of the relatives of our staff. So, hindi rin assurance na while they will evacuate to the south, na hindi sila mamamatay. So, that's the reason why many of them just opted to stay in their houses and then they die as a family.
Thank you for giving those predicament that our Palestinian brothers and sisters are experiencing. So going to Attorney Bert, we really see the situation in Gaza, and yung as you said, the other countries have shifted their side to give support to the Palestinian victims of this conflict. But yung we even with the international laws there, how Attorney Bert effective will be the enforcement of these international laws. And we have the UN Security Council and maybe other bodies that can use their own authorities to like this remedy the situation. So paano na ma-enforce, no, kung meron tayong mga international laws, no, that can somehow neutralize, no, the casualties in this conflict.
So, sir, the situation is even more frustrating than our attempts to enforce our rights in the West Philippine Sea with international law. So, at this point, it's the United Nations Security Council which has the power to put a stop to this. And this is so because not of the UN Security Council's power, but because it's the United States really which has the say or the biggest influence on Israel. Israel is strong-willed when it comes to its security, and Hamas is equally strong-willed when it comes to fighting for its cause. And for now, the humanitarian issue is the humanitarian emergency, which I support the posters of both gentlemen with us right now, that the attacks must stop right now. And that's the first order of the day. So we had hopes that the ceasefire would have lasted and would have tempered both parties into tempering their actions. Hopefully, mangyari pa yun ngayon because nga it's really to stop the bleeding. I think we should be advocating our leaders to help put a stop to this. But as a diplomat or as a former diplomat, and as taught by great graduate of this college, the late Ambassador Petronila Garcia, who served in Egypt, Israel, and Canada as ambassador. She taught us that no matter what your feelings are, you still need to work with all of the parties. So for our side, working with the embassy in Tel Aviv, we still had to work with the Israelis who has sway or who has the power in the occupied territories, which they call the administered territories. So we had to work also with Jordan because it's from Jordan. It's our embassy in Jordan which has jurisdiction over the West Bank and Gaza. And we also have to work with the Egyptians, although it's in Cairo where we manage we manage our relations with Egypt, which is 6 to 7 hours away, I think, from the Rafah border crossing. So any crossing or any evacuation through Egypt is always complicated. So from our experience around 2008 to 2010, when we evacuated our nationals there, we needed good relations with all parties, Israel included. So as a practical matter, when we have a lot of things, for example, we're going to take them out of Gaza, out of harm's way, we're going to need the permission of the Israelis. So we have to understand why our leaders cannot, let's say, or our diplomats cannot fully vote, let's say, on a United Nations resolution condemning Israel if it also does not condemn the actions of Hamas. Because we not only have to be balanced, but we also have to be nuanced in order to protect our people. So that's why we were able to get our people out. In 2007, 2008, we learned of our countrymen's situation in Gaza, and they did not trust the Philippine authorities. So kailangan pa namin silang ligawan dahil nga wala na silang tiwala sa ating mga kababayan. So we delivered food aid, and I expressly instructed our attaches to deliver food aid. And we work not only with the governments of Israel and Gaza, but we also had to work with international organizations in order to deliver this food aid to our kababayan. So let me stop muna po doon.
Yeah, thank you, Attorney Bert. Okay, at this point, no, we are giving the audience an opportunity, no, to yeah, no, raise your question, no, to any of our guests, or to also share your insights, no, given the uh, inputs shared by our guests. Um, yes, okay, so Dr. Jed wrote something here. Maybe we can call on Dr. Jed, not to yeah, no, just verbalize his maybe yeah, question here.
Okay, Dean Francis. So again, sir, I would like to express my thanks to all of our distinguished speakers for their very insightful comments. My question, po, sir, is this. With Israel's ultimatum for Palestinians in northern Gaza to leave and relocate to the southern part of Gaza, does that mean that Israel has the intention to occupy northern Gaza, and perhaps for good, or for how long? Thank you, sir.
Yes, so thank you, Dr. Jed. Yeah, no, maybe Darwin or Regidor, no, can answer this first, based on yeah, no, what you hear, no, from the ground. Yeah, no, what is the intention of Israel, no, for yeah, no, displacing, no, the Palestinians, from Gaza?
Yeah, please remember that in 2005, before 2005, may mga settlements na ang Israel sa Gaza Strip. During that war between them and Hamas, so napaalis yung mga settlers, as we call them, and then they concentrated in the West Bank. And that's the reason why at that time, it was the Palestinian Authority who is actually the de facto government in Gaza. So during that war, nanalo ang Hamas, and by that election in 2006, sila ngayon yung nag-govern sa Gaza Strip. According to the staff in the north, because we're still staff working in Indonesian hospital and allow the hospital in the north, and few of them, they can actually understand Hebrew. And they were saying that in the northern part, north of the hospitals, Israelis actually planted their flags there. So hindi natin alam as our organization and as our staff, they don't know if Israel wants to settle in the northern part or not. But yeah, I think Attorney can give more light on that. Yeah.
Yeah, but Reggie, I want to also give your count on this before we go to Attorney.
I guess in terms of demographics, northern Gaza is quite adjacent to the settlements of Israel that is close to the area of Esderot and also Ashkelon. So this is not MSF's statement, and this is not also my statement. I guess it was quite clear when the Prime Minister of Israel gave the three objectives why they need to wage war on Gaza. First is like to eliminate, destroy Hamas. Second is to free the hostages that were taken by Hamas. And to neutralize Gaza Strip means that it will not be a threat in the future for the state of Israel. If you can read that lines on what he's been doing right now, there's an indications that they will really push on the third objective to make sure that Gaza Strip will not be posing threat to the state of Israel in terms of security, because they're looking at more on the security perspective.
Thank you, Reggie. Yeah, Attorney Bert.
Sige po. We don't know for sure, but even the Israelis don't know for sure how long will be they there for. So will they occupy northern Gaza? Right now they are occupying northern Gaza, but the bigger action probably would be in the southern Gaza, and unfortunately andun na ang population dahil andun yung mga tunnels nga nila, yung infrastructure ng Hamas. So, just like in the previous war, Israel would kill or would be able to kill a lot of Hamas soldiers and middle-level leaders, but the top leaders of Hamas will still be in Qatar. And Hamas has proven its resiliency by lying low, and then after Israel withdraws by replenishing its numbers. So would this catastrophe or of human deaths lead to more recruits for Hamas in the future? It's very possible because we are seeing a lot of fathers with dead children, a lot of children with dead parents. So this would be easier to recruit. And as one, I think, publication said, for all its technological and advanced weaponry and superior soldiers, and even the talent of its intelligence services, one can never truly eradicate a terrorist organization or an organization, a political movement like Hamas. It's an ideology. So how many missile strikes would take to kill an ideology? We don't know. So it's going to be a quagmire for Israel, and they know it if they occupy. That's why their previous incursions to Gaza were merely punitive, and then they get out because occupying Gaza would mean weekly death tolls or monthly death tolls, which their population would get tired of later on. So I think that's my take.
Yeah, thank you, Attorney Bert. So let's go to the next question here. I'll just read it, no? Maikli lang naman, no? So isa from Mary Kiara Lisay, is a two-state solution still the viable option to solve this conflict? And if it is viable, how viable, no, will this solution be? Yeah, maybe Attorney Bert.
That's also the question of many people, yung viability ngayon ng two-state solution, not just because of the current hostilities, but more so because of the level of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. So unlike Gaza, Gaza is more or less homogeneous yung teritoryo niya. Iisang teritoryo lang siya. Ang West Bank, para silang isla sa lupa. So there are settlers, and they are dividing up yung mga natitirang Palestinian lands into zones. So there are zones that are occupied by Israel, and there are zones that are governed by Israel but not occupied, and there are zones that are for the Palestinian Authority. So paliit ng paliit yung zone na yon. So that's why experts are questioning the viability. But for me, the other option is even less viable. That is the one-state solution. I don't see Jews and Palestinians being able to live together. I don't see them sharing the same space. I don't see them sharing the economy. And then there's a third option actually. It's called the three-state solution. So Gaza would be a state unto its own because it's ruled by Hamas, and the West Bank would be a state on its own because it's ruled by Fatah, the original Palestinian Liberation Organization authority. So another solution would be for the two territories to be reabsorbed. So Gaza used to belong to Egypt, and then West Bank used to be administered by Jordan. This was before the 1967 war. So unfortunately for this track, Jordan and Egypt are no longer interested for their own reasons in reclaiming the territory and the population. So I think the best solution is still the two-state solution. How to make it work then would be the challenge. Would either party settle for what could be negotiated? That's the big question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Attorney Bert. But for Darwin and Red, yeah, no, attorney has laid down no, some options, no, some possible solutions. But from your perspective, no, how do you see this conflict ending? Yeah, no, given the complexities no, of its historical roots, yeah, no, may pag-asa ba and yung ano, how can yeah no based on what you have seen no yeah no the interaction no of Palestinians as well as Israelis no paano kaya magkakaroon ng tuldok no itong kaguluhan na ito.
I mean, first and foremost, we are not expert in terms of political views and everything, but from our side, what is quite important as a humanitarian organization that has been a history in occupied Palestinian territories. So I will highlight it as occupied Palestinian territories. What we are seeing is the consequences of the occupation. This is quite important to highlight. So it means that escalations of conflict will continue. Repressions towards the Palestinian populations will continue. I guess you all heard that right now Gaza Strip is quite a highlight, but we need also to remember that there are violence that is happening also in the West Bank, which is they're continuing to do arrests. Particularly, only Israel is the one that is arresting children and put them in detentions, which is quite absurd in a way. So our organization has been working for quite some time in West Bank, in Hebron, and also in Nablus and Jenin. We are providing mental health support for this affected population. So for us, we are dealing with the consequences of conflict, in particular in this context, as what Attorney Bert was saying. It's a complex context to understand. But from our side, this is more medical or humanitarian support that we are giving. So regardless of the solutions that will be found, it means that if there are two-state solutions, what we are calling right now is immediate ceasefire to ensure that the protection of civilians in times of conflict is addressed. This is what is important before talking about peace talks or solutions. So we need to stop the atrocities. We need to stop the conflict.
Thank you.
Yeah. In addition to that, well, for MSF, we have our core values, one of which is actually impartiality, neutrality, medical ethics, and also témoignage. Témoignage is a French word which means to bear witness and to speak out if needed. And so that's the reason why MSF, we are treating a soldier, for example, if there are soldiers, civilians. When I was in Afghanistan, even Taliban, we were treating them because ang tingin namin sa kanila pasyente, not because they belong to a political party or to any affiliation. But as Reggie said, we are dealing with the consequence of the war. So Kukunti na lang ang supplies and medicines sa Gaza Strip, and that's why we're crying for a ceasefire and increased intake of humanitarian aids, food, water, medicines, and fuel sa Gaza. Because in order for us as organization to work on our mandate to treat the wounded, then kailangan namin ang humanitarian space. We need our medicine supplies in order for us to do our job.
Yeah, thank you, Darwin. Perhaps now we can give way to the last question. Although I would like to also read Dr. Carmen Peñalosa's comment here. For the historical, social, political, and economic context, people may want to read books and listen to extensive interviews available online by historian Iran Papp, political science professor Norman Finkelstein, and journalist in Israel Gideon Levy. There are many other, of course, now including the media briefing conducted by UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights, Francesca Albanese. And to our speakers, sabi ni Dr. Carmen, Doctors Without Borders and all the UN aid workers in Gaza, the more than 100 who have already been killed by the bombings of Israel and those who continue to remain in the ground. I salute you, and my heart goes to you and the people of Palestine. You are all heroes. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Carmen. And yeah, no, there is one question here which I think Attorney Bert can respond to from Kisha Lisay. Can OPEC countries withhold oil so that the U.S. will be forced to stop funding Israel?
As a leverage, the US is now the top oil producer, I think, with the oil sale. So that ship might just have sailed. And Russia is selling oil at a discount. So, but the Arab countries also have their own relations now with Israel. And Israel is also interested in truth is, Israel is buying from some Arab countries their oil. So they will also listen because they would like to maintain those. But as a reminder to our students from Miriam College, based on we don't have to stop advocating for peace. We have right now the biggest immediate need is a ceasefire, and a solution probably is very far with those history between the two parties. And as Filipinos, we also have our own interests. So our primary interest there would be the Filipinos in Gaza. So we have evacuated Filipinos here from Gaza to the Philippines. From our experience, within a month of the cessation of hostilities, they are back in Gaza. Why? Because their lives are there. Their ties are there. So, kahit na anong sabihin mo, na Pilipino nga naman sila, ang puso rin nila ay talagang nasa Gaza dahil doon sila pinanganak, doon sila lumaki, doon din sila tumatanda. So we also have to keep that into consideration. And then we also have to have relations with whoever are the authorities there. So we cannot just condemn blindly. So if our leaders are being perceived as not doing something, they are actually making calculations. They are not doing something. They are calculating. Tingnan natin ang nangyari. The UN Secretary General did not condemn Israel in his speech. I think it was very balanced in his recent speech. He castigated both parties, and he condemned the attacks on UN facilities and UN personnel. But the result was the Israelis got offended, and their foreign minister refused to speak to the UN Secretary General, and now they are refusing visas to Israel for UN personnel. So that's the environment our diplomats are operating in. So how can we rescue Filipinos, let's say in the West Bank or Gaza? Let's say they are victims of human trafficking, and we have rescued some victims of spousal abuse, and we have rescued some victims of forced marriages, forced child marriages. So we need to be effective because even as diplomats, we could not enter Gaza because of the blockade. So only select people like United Nations personnel are allowed to go inside. So we need to work through others. So I hope it's something that we can understand. Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Attorney Bert. Yeah, before we make or I ask our guests to give their closing statements. Maybe one last question here, no? So this is from Dr. Carmen, from Dr. Haj Hassan. Maybe this is for Darwin and Regidor, no? One of your doctors who fled Gaza urging immediate humanitarian aid to Gaza to the Executive Director of Doctors Without Borders, Benoist, demanding permanent ceasefire and medical aid the wounded, and yet now the return to bombings. I wonder how you are all doing your social emotional health. Yeah, no, so to our healthcare workers, no, in Gaza, no, so yeah, how are you, no? Yeah, particularly your psycho-emotional well-being.
Yeah, ang mula po nung umpisa ng giyerang ito, MSF, we are already crying for ceasefire because we've seen the impact from the civilians, infrastructures, and that's why we're calling for ceasefire. Why we are after the 1 week truce, why we are still calling for ceasefire is because the intake of humanitarian aids, especially medicines, indeed it's not easy for our team, and well, we have 15 international staff there now in Gaza Strip, distributed to the different hospitals, in Al-Aqsa Hospital in the middle area, and Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. So psychologically, ang nangyari sa amin, even me and Reggie and the rest of the 22 expats who were first evacuated on the 1st of November, indeed mahirap psychologically. There were time na binubomba nila. We are at the UN UNRWA Logistics Center. They are bombing 100 meters away, 150 meters away. And we're just staying sa parking space ng logistics center. We don't have roof under our head. But then because Reggie is the person leading the evacuation and I as the medical coordinator, nakikita namin how the expats, even national staff, nag-deteriorate yung kanilang psychological well-being. It's good that at that time we have our satellite phone. We are asking our staff to call their families. We have also a dedicated person to talk to us, psychologists from our headquarters. They created this action a task force to oversee yung nangyayari sa Gaza Strip. Mahirap, especially now. 2 days ago, Israeli asked the people from Khan Yunis to move from east to west. And so papaliit ng paliit yung area kung saan pwedeng magbigay ng medical interventions ang aming team. And for us, the permanent ceasefire ang kailangan for us to deliver the services that the population is direly need.
Thank you, Darwin.
From my side, it's like as what Darwin is saying, like mental health is quite challenging and difficult for us during that period, but it's quite complementary in a way. I just quote yung sinabi sa akin ng one of our national staff because we've been working for 5 rotations already sa Gaza. Then she keeps apologizing about our situation, the situations in Gaza, why we are experiencing it. And I was telling her, you don't need to apologize. It's only a quarter of what you are experiencing compared to us. Then the most difficult part from our experience mentally is like when we are evacuating, that we thought that it would be a short period of evacuation, but it take 26 days for us to stay in that conditions. But what keeps us going is also our national staff, national Palestinian colleagues that is there always with us. This is always the difficult part. Even if I give instructions to them not to come, when they heard that there's something ongoing like bombardment close to our locations, they will be there instantly. And we're trying to tell them that you need to be with your family. So it's quite an exchange for that. Then that's why it's quite difficult from the rest of our team when we're able to cross Rafah. And there's this heavy feeling that, yeah, we were safe now, but what about our national staff colleague that is still there? That is one of the emotional baggage that we can bring home, and we will not forget that one. We will try still to process that emotional baggages when we're still here outside of Gaza.
Thank you, Reggie. Okay, so at this point, I would like to ask our guests not to share any closing statement you would like to share, especially to our students, and maybe if you can share key lessons, on this issue, especially to our students who are pursuing a career in diplomacy, in the future. Yeah, we can start with Darwin.
Yeah. There's no humanitarian crisis in Gaza. There is a humanitarian catastrophe. And there is a crisis in humanity. Gaza is dying and the healthcare system is bleeding, and yet the world is doing nothing. To the students of Miriam College, in the future, in the near future, if you become a diplomat, especially so that the conflict in Middle East, I would say, is not well known to everyone. That we see, that you will see each and every person, not just the numbers during escalations and wars, but the person with dreams, with aspirations, and with human life. Ilan pa bang mga bata ang mamamatay para huminto ang digmaan sa Gaza? As a humanitarian workers, it pains. It pains a lot that isang bomba na babagsak sa Gaza, how many casualties ang maging epekto nito? So yeah, it's a life that I've chosen to serve humanity. If you will become diplomats, please. Well, the first thing is that it's the welfare of the Filipinos and the Philippines, but then see to it that yung mga buhay, whether it's from Africa, from Asia, from Middle East, will be also protected. Maraming salamat.
Yeah. Thank you, Darwin. Yeah, I go to Reggie.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I'll just take an opportunity just to highlight what we as MSF or Doctors Without Borders is calling. So we're calling for an immediate ceasefire, and also we are calling to stop attacks against hospitals and civilians, and unhindered humanitarian access. For my closing remarks, it's mostly going back to what Attorney Bert Santos is saying with regards to negotiation. So I will coin it more on operational perspective because me as a security responsible during the time that I was in Gaza, we will involve in the future in terms of security negotiations with different parties in conflict. So it is quite challenging, particularly in the context of occupied Palestinian territories with Israel, where to find the balance and where to find, how can I say it, red lines. Because what this Darwin is saying is also how many lives, there is just not numbers, right? So is that the red lines for you as will be diplomat in the future? Where you need to push? What is the limit? That is quite important. So for me personally, working in an environment in a conflict zone, Gaza is quite different. It's really complex. So it's not that we cannot do our job as a humanitarian organization. We are not the only ones that is inside Gaza. So if we cannot have access to the populations that we are trying to support and help, then our presence is quite limited. And we are not only negotiating with the warring parties, we are negotiating on various levels to ensure our supply line is also coming inside Gaza Strip. So this is quite an important note. Security for us, negotiations is first and foremost. Then negotiating in other levels to ensure that our humanitarian activities will be supported inside the Gaza Strip. So, me parting words in terms of that, it's you need to develop negotiation skills, even if you don't like it, or even you need to ensure that you are neutral and impartial in terms of negotiating. The objective is always the protection of civilians for us, and for you in the later part, our fellow countrymen. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Reggie. Let's go to Attorney Bert. You're still muted, Attorney. You need to unmute, Attorney Bert.
Okay. So there's a question from the chat box. As a
Yes, yes.
nation who always experience conflicts in and out of the country, what have we learned from experience in Israel-Hamas conflict that we can apply? What can we apply? Siguro wag masyadong hard yung mga positions ng mga parties. Wag masyadong hard yung negotiating stance natin when dealing with, let's say, one of our rebel groups or any of our rebel groups, so as not to drive them to extremes as in like Hamas. So on a lighter note, we have seen that beyond the diplomatic career, maraming careers na makikita natin with international organizations like MSF. Marami pa silang ibang grupo sa Gaza na tumutulong sa mga Gaza populace. So when we were there, we cannot enter Gaza, but we work through various UN agencies, particularly UNRWA. So the only way we could provide food aid to our Filipinos in Gaza was through fellow Filipinos working in the United Nations or in other embassies. So maraming career paths. If you are interested in humanitarian work, I have also worked with the International Migration Organization for Migration, or IOM. So sila naman ang tumulong sa atin when we evacuated in Libya. So it's an exciting world for you, not just Philippine diplomacy. You go for, if your life's work is to help other people, there is a whole career pathway. And diplomacy is not all about cocktails and doing position papers or foreign policy. This is diplomacy on the ground. It may be low politics, but it matters to the peoples whose lives you are changing. So with that, I thank you for listening and inviting me.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Tony Bird. Yes, no, the career in diplomacy, involves, so much, work, and it does not, only involve, just formal gatherings, and but we have Reggie and Darwin here, who are with the humanitarian, agencies. Yeah, that's part, of the international affairs, that we also would like to be part of. Um, yeah, no, so with this, no, actually, we expect Miss Luda, to give the closing remark, no, but I think she cannot, join us in this session. No, so just to close, no, no, the Israel-Hamas war, no, is as already said, no, a complex, no, and deeply rooted conflict, no, and the path to peace, no, is very much challenging, no. Uh, Although, the end, no, of Israel's attack, no, the objective, no, is to neutralize, no, the terrorist group, no, and forge a secure place for its citizens. Uh, and indeed, no such end is worth pursuing, but the means, no, used to achieve the end, no, is another question. No? So the ethical principle, the end does not justify the means, no, is crucial in this issue. No? Though the end is noble, no, not all means or ways to achieve it, no, can be justified. And if we want a lasting solution, no, to this conflict, we need a stronger moral compass, no, that recognizes and values the sacredness of human rights and human dignity. No? The vicious cycle of violence will not end. Not just yesterday morning, a deadly bombing attack, no, was carried out during a Catholic mass, no, in a university gym in Marawi, killing at least 4 people and injuring 50 others. And Islamic State militants claimed responsibility for the attack. But we have to remember, no, that many Muslims are innocent, no? And such attack, no, should not be addressed by attacking Muslim communities. As we know, violence begets violence. So the way of peaceful resolution, dialogue, and diplomacy may be difficult, but no, it is the humane, no, and the ethical way to resolve the conflict. So again, no, on behalf of Miriam College, we like to thank Darwin, Reggie, Attorney Bert, no, for taking time, no, to give very helpful insights, no, on this issue. And yes, no, so hope, no, your inputs, no, can help us, no, in Miriam, no, our faculty and students, so understand better, no, this problem, no, in the Middle East. So, but before we go, may I ask, no, everyone to turn on their camera, no, for our photo op, no, with our guests. Okay, so maybe Giselle can take a screenshot, no, of our Zoom frame.
Okay po, for the first panel, ready po? 1, 2.
Sandra, just that I think others are still
Yes, sir.
turning on their camera. Okay.
Yes. Ready
Hi,
po?
Miss Polly. Thank you for joining. Good to see you again.
Yes, Polly, thank you.
Okay po, are we
Thanks too.
good? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Next panel po. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much po.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for
everyone.
joining
Thank you
us.
for taking time to
Thank you.
join.